Over the past couple of years, there has been a significant increase in the problems within our school system. Whether it be critical race theory being pushed on the kids, talking about your skin color being a problem before they even talk about the history of this country, or whether it be gender ideology being pushed on the kids before they even realize not to eat crayons. However, there is a more dark and disturbed part that is not really being talked about a lot. And if it is, it's only to push an agenda because they only highlight one portion of it to back up their narrative, but they dismiss the rest of it because it completely debunks what they want to believe and push. We're going to explore both sides of that because I can understand both sides and both sides do make a fair point on this. Let's look at the bigger picture of this. Let's go ahead and look at Chicago alone just for this problem. Today, we're going to talk about the sexual allegations that happen within school. Teachers coming on to their students or students themselves just making up claims to protect themselves or to get revenge or whatever. It's a growing concern on both sides. However, I came across an article that actually perfectly represents what I want to talk about and how I want to discuss both issues here. And we're going to go ahead and read that article and go through the entire thing, and then we'll discuss the problem that I'm seeing. From the Daily Caller. Inspector report found hundreds of Chicago teachers allegedly groomed for adult activities and raped students. The Chicago Board of Education's Office of Inspector General annual report found hundreds of Chicago public school teachers were accused of adult to student adult misconduct in the 2021 to 2022 school year. The OIG's SA unit opened 447 cases investigating teachers for allegedly grooming, SAing, or graping CPS students last school year. Following the 325 opened in 2021, of the open cases, the SAU closed 600 over the past 12 months, according to the OIG annual report reported in Chicago City Wire. SAU investigated a Chicago high school substitute teacher for grooming several students for adult activities and engaging in adult acts with at least one student on school property, the OIG found. CPS teacher allegedly talked to students about their personal lives in person and through social media, cell phones, and other common grooming techniques, according to the OIG. The report stated that the teacher gave the student unnecessary passes to exclude her from class and encouraged students to confide in him about their personal problems. SAU claims he made intimate physical contact with students, including kissing, adult hugs, and back rubs, openly solicited adult acts such as asking the student to recruit another student for a menage a trois. A separate SAU investigation into former JROTC, Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, staff member found that he allegedly had an adult relations with a 16-year-old female high school student. SAU found that for 12 months he threatened to kill the student if her family if she reported the abuse. SAU reported that the JROTC staff member and student exchanged hundreds of text messages that were overtly adult, including, "I'm ready to F right now. I'm not going to be gentle either." Chicago Police Department arrested the JROTC staff member and charged him with 8 counts of criminal SA and 1 count of aggravated criminal adult abuse, according to the report. Several of the open cases involved in CPS affiliated adults exposing students to adult images, including one high school teacher who accessed adult movies while he was sharing his screen with minor students. The report applauded the OIG's SAU's ability to manage its extraordinarily high case volume without compromising the quality of its investigations. Over the past 4 years, the SAU's accomplishments have been significant. It has opened 1,735 cases following allegations reported by students, alumni, parents, staff, and others. Of those, it has closed a total of 1,384 cases, raising concerns of adult on student adult misconduct and substantiated policy violations in 302 investigations, the report stated. The OIG added that of the over 1,700 cases of alleged adult misconduct between CPS affiliated adults and students, 16 criminal charges have been filed. Now, this is a growing concern for both students and the people accused of these acts. And here's why. In 4 years, 1,735 cases were opened, 1,834 are closed. That leaves 351 cases still open. Of those 1,384 cases that they closed, 302 actually had policy violations. That leaves 1,082 that they said had no violations or any misconduct whatsoever. And out of those 1,735 cases, only 16 actually brought up charges. Now, only 16. In 4 years, that's four every year. And this, mind you, is only in the Chicago area. Now, like I said, I do understand both sides of this because there is a point to be made on both sides. On one hand, you have adults who are preying upon minors. The other hand, you have minors who are using these allegations as a form of punishment to teachers for maybe they don't like the teacher, maybe the teacher said some things that the kid doesn't like, maybe they're using it as blackmail, or maybe they're just using it because the teacher gave them a bad grade. It's still a growing concern either way. Now let's talk about the ones that were closed, that didn't bring up anything. That's a little over 1,000 cases in the Chicago area. Let's be honest with each other. Whether you want to admit it publicly or not, there are a lot of times where people make these allegations that they know aren't true. For whatever reason, a multitude of reasons, it happens. I myself have had three Me Too allegations thrown at me for consensual acts with women. All three of those were consensual. All three of those were later, well, if you don't give me this or you don't do that for me, I'm going to tell the cops that you raped me. All three. And if it wasn't for recording one phone call conversation, living in a one party consent state, it was allowed. And the other two having the nerve to actually send their threats in text, I'd be in jail right now because our court system does favor women over men, whether it be child custody, whether it be the believe all women kind of situation. Our court systems do favor women. However, it has become increasingly easy for a woman just to throw out allegations and ruin a man's life just because. And it truly has. It has become a huge issue that women are allowed to do this with impunity, even when proven that they have lied and started a whole court case to ruin a man's life. No punishment happens to the woman at all. As a matter of fact, most people only read the allegations and believe it wholeheartedly. They never see the end of the case where the woman lies. So most people actually believe that these allegations are really 100% true. And in our attempt to protect children from these things while giving them absolutely no responsibility for their actions or no punishment for their misconduct, these kids have grown up to think that, well, if anything happens, I can just throw out an allegation, get them in trouble, take the heat off me, and they probably go to jail just for pissing off the child. Now there are instances as well where the child is actually the groomer in the situation that approaches the man and relentlessly goes after the man for these kinds of things. And when it's brought up, well, crocodile tears come into play, the lying starts, and the man's thrown in jail because the woman actually did it. Now, I understand the man being the adult in this situation should have never let that happen. You do have a point. But the child should have never been able to do that in the first place. And there are cases of women who are actually abusing young children, young boys, and other young girls as well. Let's not get it twisted. This isn't just men preying on little girls. However, When there is absolutely no punishment for false accusations, this becomes a rampant situation with absolutely no control over. If a man is falsely accused, he serves the punishment from society because society believes he actually did it, even though the allegations were complete lie. Which is why I am in favor of the person that made the false allegation serving as much time as the person who was accused had the accused actually been found guilty. If it is proven that you have made false allegations for whatever reason, you should be the one to serve that punishment. With that in place, people would not falsely accuse just because they know they can get away with it. Take the Amber Heard Johnny Depp situation. Amber Heard abused Johnny Depp. Now, I'm not saying Johnny Depp is an angel in any way. That dude is a horrible man as well. He probably did some things as well, but it wasn't proven in court. She gaslighted him throughout the entire thing. She attacked him, physically assaulted him, and yet she tried to sue that man and throw him in jail for the attempts that she committed herself. Now, I understand in that situation, Johnny Depp could have turned around immediately and accused her and went through another trial with that, even though she was found to have lied and all that came out in court, it would have been a hands down win. However, if the court system were to automatically apply that punishment to the false accusation, then she wouldn't have done that in the first place, knowing full well she would have gone to jail for the situation that she herself perpetuated. Now, in cases with minors, it is treated differently. However, being in these kinds of situations, I think they should be applied and tried as an adult. If you were to make those claims of adult allegations and they are not true, you put yourself in the place of an adult in that situation. You need to take the punishment as an adult. Now, with these allegations that do actually turn out to be true, these people need to have to throw the book at them. Maximum sentence, no good behavior time, no, it's your first time in court system, no leeway with it whatsoever, because that is a truly disgusting act to prey on a minor in an adult way for adult relations. With children coming up with hormones raging, there is a stigma behind adults and minors being in adult relationships, as well as there should be. But that causes the child to actively pursue adults for that relation because of the stigma behind it, knowing full well that there will be no recourse for them at all. It'll always be the adult in that situation that takes that punishment. Full disclosure, when I was younger, I actually tried to pursue older women myself. I am glad that they never went through with it in any way, but I engaged in that behavior myself. So I know full well that it exists. I know full well that it is out there. And I know full well that it does happen because some of the people that I grew up with were having relations with adults that were more than 2, 3 years older than them. We're talking 5, 6, 7 years. We're talking to people that should know better. It does exist and it does happen. And oftentimes it is the child that starts the act. And as I said, for the adults that prey on the children, throw the book at them, give them no leeway whatsoever. Let prison rules apply for them because with things like this going after kids, our inmate population does have a code that they will enforce themselves. But out of that 1,735 cases, that covers only 1,082. What about the rest of them? Okay, let's take a look. Now, this article does not go into it, but they say there are 302 policy violations. Now, are these kissings and hugs and back rubs that we're talking about? Or is that somebody trying to console a child that's crying and they put their hand on their shoulder or they put their hand on their knee or something of that nature to try to console, to try to empathize with the child, to have them stop crying and calm down? That is not actually reported in any way in this. So these 302 policy violations have now become questionable in nature. Let's just be honest. The Believe All Women, the Me Too movement, that scared a lot of men into to not even trying to date or to even not even consider getting married because no fault divorce. Well, why would you get married to a woman if she's going to leave you for absolutely no reason and take half your belongings, make you pay for the rest of your life for what? Because she was unhappy? I mean, now it's even sexual harassment in the UK to call a man bald. Now, if these really were real policy violations that could be misconstrued in a certain way, okay, great. Fire them, get rid of them. Cool. We don't need that kind of situation going on. Rubbing a person's back, just like sitting beside them, rubbing on their back as they're crying, is not sexual in nature. That's just trying to console that child. However, that could be misconstrued as a policy violation because no contact with kids, because it's always considered sexual in nature no matter what. And because of acts like that, I can't really say that these people need to be brought up on charges of this and go through a court battle because society would deem them as a predator for simply trying to console a child. If these were sexual advances towards a minor, then these people do need to be brought to trial. They need to be locked away if found guilty. We need them out of our school systems and out of our population altogether so they cannot prey on another minor for any instant. Out of this whole thing, there are still 351 cases that are still open. Only 16 in the last 4 years have actually brought up any real charges for these people. Like I said, that is 4 every year. And there are times because of the status of the adults that these cases are swept under the rug, pushed aside, and literally forgotten about because of the status of the person. I know a woman who, while she was in school, was actually assaulted by one of her teachers who was a brother of the mayor of a big city that I lived in at the time. And because he was the brother of the mayor, this case was literally disappeared. It was Epsteined even before it even went to court. There are reports, police reports of the incident, and it never went any further simply because of the status of the person that committed the assault. And there are tons of stories of our elites preying on minors that get swept under the rug. Case in point, Ghislaine Maxwell. mm, she went to jail for exploiting minors and trafficking them for adult entertainment. Yet we still don't know the names of the people that were her clients. She went to jail for trafficking to clients that don't exist. And even darker still, there is a push to protect these pedophiles under the LGBT umbrella. I don't know why they want these minor attracted people, pedophiles, to be related to them in any way, but yet there is that push to normalize their behavior and a push to lower the age of consent in some places to 13 years old. Now, I will admit, myself, personally, I don't have any biological children, but friends, exes, people that are close to me, they do have children. And I care about those children as well, just as if they were my own. Case in point, Freely Ashley has been on this channel several times. She just had twins recently. Both guys from the Business Party podcast. We have Immortal Legend, who has been on this channel. He has kids. As a matter of fact, when we had our talk, he was actually going to pick up his children. Gaming friends of mine have children that I care about, and I will defend them with my life. Even though some of these people that I have mentioned, I have never met in person in real life, I still care about them because they are actually decent human beings, and I want to see them raise decent kids to become decent adults and be productive members of society. But if we allow these pedophiles to remain in our school systems to prey upon these children that I have mentioned can never be anything more than traumatized adults who go on to carry that trauma into adulthood and become really messed up individuals who then go on to mess up even more individuals. And likewise, if there is no punishment for the children who make these false allegations and actually pursue these adults themselves because they have started these incidents, they go on to believe that their actions carry no consequence and they go on to do other heinous acts. Now, in these articles and these numbers that I've thrown out, I want you to remember this is only in the Chicago area. How many are around the country as a whole? Think of that number. How many actual false allegations are made around this country with children? How many are real questionable actions? And how many go unnoticed? Why do we allow these children to make these false allegations with impunity on adults to get revenge for a slight that the child thinks is something major to them? Why do we have judges that go very lenient on convicted pedophiles to go back out into society to offend again? Why are we trying to push to lower the age of consent so that children are assaulted on an astronomical scale? These are questions we need to have a firm answer to before we, as a whole society, as a country, can come together to make sure that our children are protected from pedophiles and to make sure that innocent adults are protected from minors who like to accuse just because they know they can get away with it. If left unchecked, this will grow to be another huge problem within this country that we could have nipped in the bud before it became something major, simply because we are too distracted with everything else. Now, this is a cultural problem, not necessarily political in any way, and I don't care where you line up in political nature. What I'd like you to do is leave your comment below thinking of how you would like to handle this situation, thinking of your ways to resolve this issue so our children can grow up with it without living in fear of being preyed upon. And adults can actually console an upset child without having to worry if there will be charges brought up simply for being a decent human being and caring about the upset child. So, if you would please go ahead and like this video, share this video with everybody else so they can get involved in the conversation as well. And we can start talking amongst each other to come up with a solution and push this conversation a little further.